Welcome to the Drill Down, in-depth answers to oilfield questions. I'm Richard Spears.
And I'm John Spears.
And
Good morning.
we are both in undisclosed locations today because it's such a beautiful fall day. There's no way we're going to work to the office.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Hey, but the thing that I wanted to challenge the two of us with today is that we each come up with two things that caught our attention over the last week. And I have my two things. Do you have your two things?
I have two things ready to go. Let's see if we pick the same two things. So,
all right. So I think we've got to figure out how to do this, how to choose who goes first. So we're going to do rock, paper, scissors. Since we're doing a Teams call here, I'm looking at you, you're looking at me. Do you know how rock, paper, scissors go?
I understand. Yep. Here we go.
All right, ready. And it's going to be 1, 2, 3, reveal, right?
Okay. Yep.
Ready?
Yep.
1, 2, 3, reveal.
Oh, get out of here.
Oh, I got the same answer. All right, ready?
Yep.
1, 2, 3, reveal.
Oh, you win. Okay.
I win, so I get to choose.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
Or is that I get to go first?
I think you get to receive in the second half. Isn't that how that goes? Yeah.
I receive in the second. Oh, that's right. So that means I still don't know who goes first. I'll go first.
Okay.
I'll go first anyway because this is my great. So the thing that caught my idea was actually the announcement yesterday.
Yes.
We're recording this on Tuesday. So it was the day before where we saw that Caterpillar acquired or has agreed to acquire Weir Oil and Gas. Now Weir is this UK-based big industrial company that's been acquiring or had been acquiring oil field service manufacturing and rental companies over the last, 10 or 15 years.
Right. Yes. They were making a big entry into the frac business through pump manufacture and so forth. Yes.
Yep. And they also had frac stacks and Christmas trees and high pressure treating iron. And they had some processing related equipment that you would find on a drilling rig and maybe on a production area. But this is a company that was, the Weir Oil and Gas division was like $1.7 billion a few years ago. This past year is just under $800 million. This year, according to our crackerjack analyst, Missy Parker, she says it's going to be a very precise $461 million in the current year.
Okay.
But the agreement looks like it was around $405 million to buy Weir Oil and Gas.
Okay.
So the reason why that caught my eye,
yes,
is because Caterpillar is kind of taking a contrarian view here, aren't they?
Well, they're making they're getting even bigger in the oil patch at a time when things are, absolutely rock bottom, right? So because Cat has supplies engines to in frac equipment, to drilling rigs, and so forth, and so this just broadens their product line particularly in the frac area, but yeah, pretty much everything.
Yep, and Caterpillar has done a yeoman's job of getting into the large transmission business. They've made a purchase of a high pressure treating iron company called Kemper a few years ago. Yeah. They've got a joint venture with Ariel Corporation. Ariel that makes compressors. They actually have a frac pump manufacturing company. And dang it, I forget the name of the company, but I think it's Black Horse. But they're already in these businesses. And in the past, they've fabricated frac trucks. They don't do that many of them these days. Yep. But yeah, so I think that Caterpillar is acting like an OV in that they're trying to be the oil industry's manufacturer of choice. And they're going to consolidate, control, and build this moat around this aspect of the business that should serve them well. Yeah. And at $400 million acquisition price, they're probably going to do just fine with this acquisition. Great timing.
You'd hope so. We had been making the point that the second quarter of this year was all about companies resizing their organizations, right? Cutting staff, downsizing, right-sizing, whatever the right words would be, so that they could survive, at a 250 rig count. But that being done, the firms now are looking around and saying, okay, what steps do we need to take that provide some opportunity for growth, positions us to better serve the customer, things like that. So, so the timing for this kind of a consolidation makes complete sense to me. and hopefully it makes a good business sense for everybody too.
All right, so now it's your turn. What's your
Yeah,
first one?
so the thing that caught my eye this past week was the fact that the Saudi Arabians are in their budgeting process are assuming that oil prices will stay around $50 for the next 3 years, so through 2023. And that's just an interesting point, because the other bit that caught my eye in that news flash was that in order for the Saudi government to break even, it needs an oil price next year of around $66 a barrel. And several of the other Mideast oil exporters like Iraq, Kuwait, and so forth, are all looking at break-even prices in the $55 to $65 range. So again, break-even from the standpoint of what oil price number provides them sufficient revenues to cover their governmental expenditures. So what that tells me is that there's going to be continued discipline, I guess is the right word, on their part to hold the line in production, not overproduce, in order to lift prices from the $40 level or so that we see today. So I don't see, one of the things that has been striking about the last couple of quarters is the amount of discipline that the big oil exporting nations have exhibited in terms of holding the line on output. And I think these kind of numbers just reinforce the assumption that we have that kind of discipline is going to stay in shape or stay in place for some time to come. Certainly through the end of this year and the end of next year, I think. So,
that segues into then the second thing that I've got.
Okay.
In fact, there was two segues, because you actually highlighted it just before you brought your topic up.
Yep.
We've just finished the third quarter, and now we're here in the early days of October, waiting for that first earnings call to occur.
Right.
And this is how it's going to tie to what you just said. But and so nobody's announced what earnings are, but I do sit on a few boards. We do have hundreds of clients out there who we get to participate in various ways in how they run their businesses. And like you said, Q2 was all about slash your costs, get to whatever the new size is. I think that what we're going to see in the third quarter, what just finished, is a surprising amount of good earnings.
Wow. That would turn things around.
Because a couple things are going on. I mean, with the companies where I sit on the board, things were actually pretty good, because as fast as the collapse came, I mean, the management teams of these oil field service, and I'm not talking oil companies, I'm talking service companies in this case.
Understand.
They've been trained over the decades and through the generations that when things go bad, you have to immediately adjust your cost basis. And so I think that what you're going to see in the earnings calls of Q3 is a surprising profitability of the oilfield service companies, the good ones anyway. Remarkable amount of cash that's been built up by these service companies, and so hoarding cash, because you never know.
Right. Deleveraging your balance sheet. Yes. Right.
Yeah, and so you've got this sector of the industry that's been orphaned from the investor community for quite some time, over a year now, and valuations are stunningly low, and yet they're about to begin to release these quarterly earnings, which are going to be surprising. And so if we take this sector, this orphaned sector, which actually starts making money, and how about this, pay a dividend, and you combine it with what you just said about the Saudi budget and about the discipline of the big national oil companies and international oil companies, or let's call it an underinvestment in energy, you could be setting yourself up for a situation where the oil industry and the oilfield service industry specifically becomes one of the more attractive places to put your money, particularly if you'd like to have a dividend paid.
Well, it's all, of course, what kind of risk profile, I guess, you as an investor choose to have. But so one other thing I'd add to that, which is that we're right now collecting information in terms of what's happening to well costs over the past quarter, and there's been very little change. So it's not like pricing to drill and complete wells has continued to weaken. I think that's largely now stabilized, and so that's going to help companies when it comes to their profit and loss statements, I think. But yeah, good point. Now, we all understand that for the oil service guys to get back in the good graces of the investors, it's going to be sort of like the long march, that the Chinese Communist Party had back in the 40s. It doesn't happen quickly. It's going to take a while. But any journey begins with one step, and then maybe this one's one in the right direction. So that would be good news.
It's the jilted lover who is not going to immediately restore trust to prove to me for a while, a year, 2 years, 3 years. But in the meantime, things could be pretty good, actually. So that's what I'm thinking about. So what's your second one?
Well, so I even have a longer term perspective on my second one, which is there was a little. So we are now on about podcast number 180 or something like that now, if I recall correctly. And about 2 years ago, I think we talked a little bit about the subject of nuclear fusion, because we were seeing or hearing that there were some investor groups that were beginning to put money into that research area. Well, this past week there was an announcement made by a group working from out of MIT, and they have been making progress on a small nuclear fusion device. So here's where you're mashing atoms together and not fission like we see in conventional nuclear reactors. So there's no leftover radioactivity or whatnot. And so anyway, that work is continuing apace. It seems to be on track. They're thinking that in 2025 they'll have an actual device that's producing, that can test the concept. And then from there, it takes a while, because you have to build, design and build. All a nuclear fusion reactor would do is actually generate heat. So you have to then build a power plant around it so that it can convert the heat into electricity. Those kind of power plants aren't going to be around until 2035, right? So 15 years from now. So I'm thinking sometime around our 1000th episode of the podcast, we'll be talking about the first commercial nuclear fusion power plant out there. And the point I would make is that we need to be aware of progress, research, and technology development in parallel areas. As an energy sector, we can't afford to ignore that, even though some of them are going to be very long term before they really threaten the position of fossil fuels and whatnot. But it is interesting to see that there's actually been progress in this area, because that could very much make the world look different 30, 40, 50 years from now. And two of the investors in this nuclear fusion project are oil companies ENI out of Italy and Equinor out of Norway. So these we've talked about the investment that oil companies are making in renewables, and this would be an example of what a couple of them are doing. Renewables is probably the wrong phrase, I've decided, because if you take a long enough view, even the oil and gas business is renewables. You just have to wait about 1 million years to generate the reserves. So it's all really a matter of timing, isn't it?
Oh, God. I appreciate that. Well, you and I have always taken the long view of things, and that's the value that we provide. Yep. As a bonus to our listeners, I'm going to give a 30-second summary of the conversation I had while outside Boston last week with a biochemist and who's involved in the whole vaccine of COVID project.
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
So they've got phase 3 of trials going on that are going out the door right now. Mm-hmm. And so this is His point is there's no way that there can be a broad scale vaccine available, at Christmas time. Not possible. But he did say if phase 3 works, then March. So he's going with March as the broad scale, availability for the first millions of doses. But the phase 3 is here's 1,000 people who just got the vaccine, and let's see how they do. See how many of those die.
Right. So I think, they talk about the vaccine becoming available, and it would go out to, the needy, the folks who are at risk population, and of course, all of our first responder types, right? So they get it first, and then it sort of comes out to the broader populace. So you and I, we may be sitting here a year from now and just really beginning to get close to it. But still, that's progress, and would make a big change, I think, in the behavior of people and what's going on in the economy and so forth. So,
well, it's always fun, but hey, I look forward to actually seeing you in a couple of weeks when I'm back home. But I got to tell you, America is out and spending money in the Northeast. So,
well, keep encouraging them.
Anyway, hey, thanks for listening to the Drill Down. I'm Richard Spears.
And I'm John Spears. Stay safe.